So we're gonna take a look at the Joe Rogan podcast with this Harvard physicist named Avi. Now I'm just gonna preface this by saying that I saw most of the podcast, but I did not see the beginning part, which is what we're about to see. And I can tell you that I did not like it at all. I hope this first part is really cool, but the whole podcast, it was so cringe, it was so horrible because this person was not even engaging in conversation with Joe Rogan. It was just more like making a monologue speech, keep on speaking, and then Joe Rogan tried to put some different flavors into the conversation, and he was not receptive at all. He was like, no, I just have my points that I'm going to say, and that's it, and yeah, it felt so plastic. And you can tell that Joe Rogan was a little bit uncomfortable, but it does have some interesting things about 3i Atlas, so let's see it.
The
The
Joe
Joe
Rogan
Rogan
experience.
experience.
Things are getting very wild.
Yeah, there is a lot of misinformation. Some people said I invented 3i Atlas, this object, in order to distract attention from the Epstein files.
Is that what people are saying?
Yeah, and I said, look, this object.
Nobody said that ever, literally. Like, no, maybe as a joke, but okay, well, I am biased because I did not enjoy the other part of the podcast. But come on, man, nobody actually said that. Like, maybe as a joke. Oh, you invented 3i Atlas. Nobody with 3 fingers in their forehead would say that for real. But okay.
It's the size of Manhattan Island. It's at 4.5 times the Earth-Sun separation. If I was able to put it out there, I would be more powerful than the Pope. And because we're talking about a giant object that you can see from any place on Earth. You can buy online a telescope that will allow you, 0.5 meter in size, that will allow you to see it. It's out there. It cannot be faked.
Well, those people are fools. You can't listen to those people.
Yeah,
I
of
don't
course.
listen to those. I don't listen to many people,
Initially, a lot of
But
people were dismissing.
I mean, this, if you don't have the context that the next part, like the next hour of the podcast was horrible, then you might actually listen to this and be like, that's a good beginning part, like just making a little bit of a silly little statement, that's fun, that's funny, I like that. But when you see the complete podcast, you're like, no, this cannot be true. He says it for real. He actually believes that people were saying that not as a joke.
Your concerns, and they were saying that this object is nothing but a comet, and it's very normal. But then, as it got closer and as we got more data, it seems like you're correct.
Well,
This is a very unusual object.
there is something really important to recognize here, that usually when you deal with scientific matters, they have very little impact on the future of humanity. Very little. If the neutrino has a little bit of a mass, doesn't really matter. When we discovered the Higgs boson, the biggest impact was to confirm some idea we had back in the 60s. And, obviously that affected, those people who got the Nobel Prize. But most of us continued as if nothing happened. However, here, if we ever encounter alien technology, everything will change. It will affect the financial markets. It will affect politics in a major way. So my point is simple. This is different than other scientific matters.
I really do wonder, like, we confirmed that in 3i Atlas, there was intelligent life, but it does not make us stop here in the planet. Would that change everything? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about it. I know that I would be like, you know what? Money, I don't care anymore. There's aliens out there. I don't care. I don't care about money anymore. I will just go and have adventures in the world. I'm gonna go to a jungle and eat weird fruits or something like that. But I think for most people, it wouldn't change unless the aliens actually come into the earth. That would make a huge change.
And the intelligence agencies know very well that events with very small probability have to be considered seriously because they could have major implications. Just think about October 7th. The Israeli intelligence agencies had
No, this cannot be true. What?
a theory that the Hamas will do nothing. And they got data that indicated something is going on out there, but they dismissed it because of their theory. Now, because as a result of their mistake.
Why is he speaking about Israel? It's not the same. I don't know. I mean, what is the point here? Am I crazy? Yeah, no, this is insane. Like, it's very different, some military attack, than to say, okay, there might be alien life that is coming to Earth. I think it's quite not related at all, not even close. I do understand a little bit the point of like, what if we just say, well, there's some hints that there might be intelligent life, but we're not gonna take it seriously, and then the aliens just come and bang us. Yeah, I understand that, but it's like, I mean, even if we know the aliens are coming, their technology is so advanced that it's like, and it's so advanced because they were able to get to here, and we're not able to get to wherever they came from, but they are able to come to Earth. So they clearly smarter than us in some ways, or more developed. So they're gonna destroy us whether we are prepared or not. I think we just gotta use that strategy of pants down, ass up, just in case, to signal submission to the aliens, and that's about everything that we can do.
It's clearly a blunder. A lot of people died on both sides. For that, this could have been avoided if they were to consider a black swan event, an event that you put a small probability for it happening, but you look at anomalies in the data and say, look, the implications are so huge, we have to consider it. And, this idea was already
what I said,
considered by the philosopher mathematician.
Why you had to mention Israel in the first 3 minutes?
Pascal.
Come on, man.
He talked about God. And he said, look, of course, you might think that God doesn't exist. The probability for that is small. But the implications, if God exists, the implications are so huge that we have to discuss it. That was the argument, Pascal's wager. And the intelligence agencies know that. Believe me, the Israeli intelligence agencies will not make that mistake again. Now,
what? Sorry?
The Israeli intelligence agencies will not make that mistake again.
He's Israeli intelligence. Like, is this a whole 15 minutes rant about Israel intelligence and how he is part of them? I want to know about 3i Atlas, please. Please.
It's an object from outside the solar system, and it shows anomalies. The scientists would say we should be as careful as possible at talking about anything other than a rock. Now, they say that when they know that humanity launched a lot of space junk, a lot of technological objects to space. And we also know that there are 100 billion stars like the sun in the Milky Way galaxy alone. Most of them formed billions of years before the sun. And there are billions of Earth-Sun analogs. Now, we all believe that we came out of a soup of chemicals. That's the scientific narrative of how human intelligence came on this Earth. And so it's quite likely that, we are not the first one. Sorry to break the news, Elon Musk was probably not the most accomplished space entrepreneur since the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. And therefore, we should consider the possibility that things like us...
Sorry to break it to you, Elon, whose life was it based on Elon Musk being or personality was based on Elon Musk being the greatest entrepreneur of the whole entire universe since the Big Bang? Yeah, now let me go to the bathroom because I gotta pee. I'm back, gamers.
Existed long before us. And you can ask the question, how long does it take our own technology, the Voyager spacecraft that we launched out of the solar system, how long does it take it to move to the opposite side of the Milky Way galaxy? Thousands of light years away, it takes less than 1 billion years. And that means that all these civilizations that had their history initiated billions of years before ours could have done it. And all we need to do as responsible scientists is to check if among all the rocks that come from outside of our backyard are really rocks, or maybe one of these objects might be a tennis ball that was thrown by a neighbor. And the reason I say that is, we live at our home, on Earth.
Man,
next
that makes
to the
sense.
sun. We look around us in the cosmic street.
What I'm wondering is if this guy is going to tell us the hints of 3i Atlas being a little bit weird of a comet. That's what I expected. Comet or alien craft. Harvard physicist warns of a mysterious interstellar object. Yes, but please tell us what makes 3i Atlas, a little bit weird. That's what I'm expecting at least.
And we see a lot of houses just like ours. There are billions of them probably. Now, my colleagues, those scientists who think traditionally, they say, well, microbes came to Earth very early, therefore they must be everywhere. So let's define our highest priority, searching for microbes on other houses in our cosmic street. And I say,
Okay.
good, you can do that from the
Yeah.
vantage point of your home. You can look through the window and search for microbes in your neighbors' yards, but you would need to put $10 billion to develop a big enough instrument that would be able to detect the chemical fingerprints of microbes, on exoplanet.
But then what does he propose is that you go to your neighbor's place that, like, I do understand that what he's trying to say is, again, the tennis ball that they could have potentially just thrown into your backyard. But what if it doesn't happen? What if they just don't throw anything, Then that's your second best option. Just look out and try to guess.
And think about the possibility that there is a resident in one of those houses. That resident might show up in your front door at some point, or you might see an object that arrives to your backyard or your mailbox from that
A
resident.
black swan event.
A black swan event. Or you might see some construction project from a distance. That might be easier to detect than microbes. So we should hedge our bets. We should invest billions of dollars on both fronts. At the moment, the scientific community is willing to allocate more than $10 billion to searching for microbes,
Yeah.
but no recommendation is made to allocate any federal funding to the search for intelligence. And I say that is an oversight.
Let's go back to
Well,
one more time.
yeah.
Oumuamua.
Okay, I don't want to screw it up. How large was that?
That was the size.
Okay, I think we're going to get into the nitty and gritty of the things. I think now it's what we've been expecting, the whole time. Just please stop speaking about the analogies. Please tell us about the pure data, the facts. Let's check it
football
out.
So
of all the 100 meters.
small in comparison to 3i Atlas.
Oh yeah, that's my point. That 3i Atlas is 1 million times more massive, at least 1 million times more massive than Oumuamua.
Right.
And I immediately, as it was discovered, it was July 1st, and my wife asked me to go on vacation to Aruba 2 days later. And as I was going on the plane and as I arrived there, I realized, wait, that doesn't make sense because we should have seen millions of Oumuamuas before we saw this one. It's so big. And I also realized there is not enough rocky material per unit volume in interstellar space to deliver.
I mean, that is a little bit weird, Yes, this is what we were expecting. Like, it is a little bit weird that if we got this super mega gigantic rock, why didn't we see other ones? A lot would be coming this way, not just one. What are the odds of just one coming very close and not maybe like 100? Maybe not coming that close, but maybe coming in a way that we can actually observe, Not close enough as this one, but somewhere. And it apparently is just one rock, gigantic rock, that is coming our way. It's a little bit odd.
It's a giant rock into the inner solar system within a period of a decade. You would expect it at the very optimistic scenario where you package all the material into objects that are 5 kilometers in diameter. You would imagine once per 10,000 years. So I wrote immediately a scientific paper. My wife was not happy that, on our vacation, I was sitting on my computer, but I just couldn't resist it.
Right.
And by the way, this paper I submitted for publication. That was July 3rd or something. And then the editor said, oh, the paper is fine, but you have a concluding sentence at the end where you say, well, unless the object is smaller than estimated, maybe it was targeting the inner source. That was my solution to say, one way out of this dilemma of why is it so big is if it was targeting the inner solar system by design. And indeed, the trajectory is aligned with the plane of the planets around the sun to within 5 degrees. the chance for that at random is 1 in 500, okay? And it's moving in a
very
retrograde
unlikely.
trajectory opposite to the motion of the planets, which is ideal for it to release mini probes that will get into the planets. It gets
I've seen a lot of people on the internet being like, well, but it's just unlikely things happen all the time. Yeah, but not this unlikely. I think it is pretty unlikely. Just this gigantic rock is coming very close to the solar system, very close to Mars even. If we have 100 of them, it's more understandable that you would get this coincidence that, okay, well, one of the many that there are came really close. But it's not like that at all. It's just one that comes really, really close.
to Mars, it gets close to Jupiter, it goes on the opposite side of the sun relative to Earth when it's closest to the sun. And that's the time when a spacecraft could do a maneuver to take advantage of the sun's gravitational assist. You know, all of these are interesting indications that may imply that some intelligence designed the trajectory. So I had one sentence at the end of the paper saying maybe the trajectory was designed.
Well, we also have to see his paper. Does he really say maybe? Well, I believe him. Maybe he really did say maybe. And yeah, you guys know how already all the industries are a little bit like this. We have seen it in archaeology where it's like they don't allow you to speculate. Or yeah, they do like a speculation or maybe not, but not in a published paper. You know, I understand that too.
And the editor said, no. The paper will not get published unless you remove that sentence.
Wow.
So now when you listen to comet experts that say, well, this claim or that claim was never...
I'm assuming he did something like, okay, one of the possibilities, not saying this is necessarily what happened, but one of the possibilities is this. I don't know much about how this paper publishing works, but if he was just proposing it as one of many possibilities that could be, even if he doesn't directly say the other possibilities, just says, hey, here's one. It's pertinent that they actually just publish it. I don't know.
Ever published in a peer-reviewed journal, guess what? They are the editors or the reviewers who are blocking the discussion on possibilities. And I think it's inappropriate, especially in the case of alien technology, because it could be a black swan event. It could be something that affects the future of humanity. And if we behave, very conservatively, we might not last very long.
Well, it's also arrogant.
It's arrogant.
Yeah. This object shows that there's no iron.
Oh, no. So then the composition of the plume of gas around
this is before you knew about the composition.
That's right.
That you wrote this paper.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as time is going on, you are being shown to be correct.
Well, we found more anomalies.
More anomalies. So this is not a normal thing.
Not a normal thing. So
I really like how Joe Rogan... I love Joe Rogan. Every single day, you get more evidence that it is actually aliens. Like, that's just it, right? Like, no, we're just finding some anomalies. Calm down, Joe. I love the excitement, though.
That looks like an extended feature. And everyone said, oh, that's a tail. That's the signature of a comet.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute. It's pointing towards the sun. It's not pointing away from the sun. Usually, cometary tails are made of dust and gas, which is pushed back away from the sun by the radiation and the solar wind, and so this one was pointed towards the sun, not away from the sun. And the question is, why? And actually, I calculated that, it appeared very clearly in the sharpest image we had from the Hubble Space Telescope, which showed an elongation by a factor of 2 towards the sun. But we were looking at it like a cigar. We were looking almost along the cigar long axis, within 10 degrees of the object sun axis. So we were looking almost edge on. Mm-hmm. And I calculated if you were to correct for that, this would be a feature that is 10 times longer than it is wide, and that means it's like a jet. So the object had a jet in front of it towards the sun. The question is why? And, the comet experts ignored it and just said, well, comets are strange, who knows? But my point is, this is a blind date of interstellar proportions. And my advice on blind dates is not to speak or say what you think this is, but to observe the other side. The best way to respond to a blind date is to observe the other side. Don't speak, just observe the other side, because it may be different than what you think, and maybe, you know, on one of the dates you will have a serial killer.
Well. I mean, I understand that for scientific purpose, scientists shouldn't like be saying, "Oh no, it's aliens." It's not aliens, definitely. Neither of those until we can actually see. But I think for most people, you can theorize whatever you want. It's fun to just like I know that in a week we'll be like, okay, it was nothing. But I still like to say, no, 100%. There's some alien technology in that comet, So I don't know.
On the other side.
Oh boy. Now, explain, if you could, how we know the composition of this thing.
So we can figure out composition of a plume of gas by taking a spectrum of it, which means you basically have some kind of a prism that breaks, that a light with different wavelengths is bent at different angles. And so you spread the light into the different colors. And if you do that, you can find the fingerprints, the spectral fingerprints of specific atoms or molecules, because each atom or molecule has transitions. I actually taught it just 2 days ago in a class that I teach that is obligatory at the Harvard Astronomy Department, where I was chair for a decade, like between 2011 2020. So this is the mandatory class, and I just taught how, spectral lines emitted by atoms and molecules.
So from what I understand, I'm no expert, but atoms and molecules kind of have like some sort of color that they reflect in a way. I don't think that's exactly it. He said something about transitions. I don't know what transitions means in this case, but that's the way that I look at it. And then you can decompose the color, decompose the light, and you can see the colors and be like, okay, so the colors are decomposed in this exact way. So it must be iron or it must be hydrogen. I don't know. I think that's a little bit what
just
it
2
is.
days ago. So this is a very well-known thing, and we know the wavelengths of those, and we use them to identify the composition.
Oh no, it is more complex than what I said. It is something about the wavelengths even. Oh no, yeah, no.
We know which atoms produce these spectral lines, the fingerprints. It's
Oh,
just
well,
like fingerprints, okay?
A little bit, like I said,
so
but not
what was
quite.
found, and that's by multiple teams. There are 3 papers on that. We found nickel, a lot of nickel, but very little iron. At first, no iron whatsoever. Now, usually in all the comets in the past, from the solar system and also from interstellar space, there is one comet, Borisov, that was found. It's the second interstellar object, which looked just like a familiar comet. I had nothing to say about that one. It looked like a comet, behaved like a comet. It was a comet, but it had similar abundances of nickel and iron. The only place where we found before much more nickel than iron is in alloys that we produce industrially. For example, for aerospace applications.
That's insane. So are you claiming that it might have been, even if it looks like a comet, it might have been produced artificially? Maybe, just theorizing here. What if the correct way to travel space is this way? Some civilization in other world figured it out. Like, what is a thing that actually travels the universe? Comets. Why don't we just make an artificial comet? Oh my goodness, I don't know.
Nickel alloys have a lot of nickel, no iron. So maybe the skin of this object is industrially produced. That was my suggestion. But what the authors of these papers said is maybe nature is capable of going through the same chemical pathway of producing nickel without iron as we do in our industries. So they made the conjecture that this carbonyl pathway, which is well known in the industry world, carbonyl is the pathway, the name of the pathway. They said, well, maybe this carbonyl pathway happens in nature. We have never seen it before.
Both options are good to check out. We gotta be open to both possibilities, whether it was artificially produced or It might just be a rare case where it happens in nature.
It is their explanation.
Oh, well, that was pretty interesting. That was insightful. I liked it. I hope that you guys enjoyed too, and you guys hopefully know a little bit more about 3i8less now. I think I understood quite a few things.